What's going on, y'all? I'm coming on a couple minutes early. Want to go ahead and get started. Been anxious about doing this episode, so I'm going to go ahead and get started a little early today. And make sure it's live on Facebook real quick. All right, it's straight. What's going on, y'all? This is another episode of All In with Nate. We got a couple things we're going to talk about. Of course, we're going to talk about the NFL draft teams 11 through 15 in the draft. We're going to talk about J.J. Watts signing with the Arizona Cardinals. But before I even get started with that, I do want to tell you guys that I will be putting information up real soon. So I want to do something for the draft. I think I'm going to do a mock draft contest. So basically, everyone's going to get an opportunity to pick the top 10 to 15 players in the draft. Whoever gets the two most accurate mock drafts to the first 15 picks, I'm going to give away a prize to you. So I'm going to post it on all three platforms, the link that I want you to use, but that's going to be, closer to the time of the draft. So I'll get into that as the draft gets closer. But again, for anybody that just got on here, I'll just mention that I'm gonna do a lot. I'm gonna give everyone an opportunity to guess the first 10 to 15 picks in the upcoming draft, and you will get an opportunity to win something special. I'm gonna try to make sure that I give away at least three prizes of some sort because it's on three different platforms. I want to give everybody an opportunity to get a shot to win. So be on the lookout for that. Michael Thomas said, "Let's go. What's going on, man? How you doing?" But before I step into the draft talk, I know a lot of you are probably familiar with the news that J.J. Watt signed with the Arizona Cardinals. The Texans released him almost maybe 2 weeks ago now. And, everyone was under the belief that he was going to go play for a contender. And he signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Before I go into my pros and cons, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I like the move for the Cardinals because the Cardinals, if you got a chance to watch them last year, the Cardinals was not a bad football team. They just missed the playoffs. They went 8-8. They have a lot of potential going forward. They're just in a really hard division where you got the Rams, who had the number one defense in the league last season. You got Seattle, who is respectively one of the best teams in the NFC. And then San Fran was banged up last year. And of course, they went to the Super Bowl in 2019. So it's going to be a very fun division to watch. I'm looking forward to see how the NFC West plays out next year. But for me personally, I like the move. But, some of my pros about it is I feel like with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, that'll be a nasty group up front on that defensive line. There's going to be pressure coming on both ends. I also feel that J.J. Watt's arrival will give Hassan Reddick, who I'm sure a lot of you probably remember from the 2017 draft, he really didn't have a big campaign until probably last year. He had 12 and a half sacks. That's going to give him more of an opportunity to really shine next season. Guys like Isaiah Simmons, they got talent in that linebacking core, in their defensive line. I think that's going to be fun. Let's see what Chris Williams said. Watson Jones with Simmons in the middle and Baker over the top. They could be a real contender. I think a lot of folks are very, very quiet about. A lot of folks haven't watched the Cardinals to know that group actually is pretty talented. And I'm sure they're going to probably lose Patrick Peterson this offseason. But if I was them, I would go get me some corners. There's going to be some corners in this draft to replace the Patrick Peterson. I would definitely add to that group because they really could be a good defense next year. Also said that J.J. Watt's going to add to the a lot of folks may not know this, but the Cardinals actually had the fourth most sacks in the league last season, which is pretty impressive for a team that is pretty young on defense. You got Chandler Jones, but you got a lot of young guys that you're getting in the defense. And some of my cons that I said, I like the Cardinals. I like what direction they're going in for 2021. However, looking at that division, you don't have any slouch in the NFC West. You got the Rams, who were the number one defense in the league last year. They played Green Bay pretty tough in the divisional. The 49ers went to the Super Bowl in 2019. They nearly beat the Chiefs in 2019. And they were really banged up last season. So That's the part that was hard for them. And in regards to the Seattle Seahawks, I feel like that defense started coming going late. Jamal Adams started coming on for him. Carlos Dunlap started coming on for him. You really got Bobby Wagner. That team is not really bad either. So you got three pretty good teams in that division that you're going to be competing neck and neck with. So I'm going to be intrigued to see what the Cardinals can do to one up their competition in that division. But the one thing I do for the short term, I do like that move. I love that move, actually, because, again, you got a lot of pressure going to come on them outsides between Watt and Chandler Jones. And I'm a big fan of Chandler Jones as well. I don't think he get a lot of credit because he's in Arizona and a lot of folks don't watch Arizona. But they're going to be fun to watch this offseason to see what they're going to do with that team. Also, let me get ready to get into the 11 to 15. Give me a second. So we're going to start off talking about the New York Giants. As you know, the Giants were nearly – that division was bad. They nearly made the playoffs in that division. You know, they beat the Cowboys at the end, but Washington held on and beat the Eagles to go to the playoffs. But the Giants started showing a little stride down the end with their defense. However, that offense was horrible without Saquon Barkley. If you remember, Saquon got hurt week 2. And if you play fantasy football like I do, let me tell you, that was a hard time for me because I actually had Saquon having a great 2020 and he got hurt. A lot of it probably had to do with the pandemic, but again, sucked to see him getting injured. Hold on, let's see. From Twitch, C-Man the Grace said, what's going on there? I just want to tell you, the bird that shirt, I got a Roll Tide shirt for you. Sir, I don't hate Alabama, but you will not see me rocking Alabama Crimson Tide shirt. Sorry. But my personal needs that I say that the Giants need are wide receivers, a pass rusher, corner, tight ends, and a defensive line. For one, the Giants had the second worst offense in the league last season. They couldn't do anything without Saquon. Nothing against Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, but again, none of those guys I'm considered as a number one. If I'm the Giants, if any of those elite receivers like the Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, any of those guys fall in my pocket at 11, I'm taking them. I need a threat. I need a home run threat. There's no receiver on the Giants right now that I'm considering as a home run threat. To me, their best receiver is Evan Ingram. And even he's inconsistent. That's a tight end. So there's going to be guys. This receiving class is pretty loaded. And depending on what happens in that top 10, there very well is going to be a really good receiver that's going to fall in their hands at 11. So that will be one of my moves. Also, I said that they need a pass rusher. You know, they run a 3-4 defense, and they rely heavily upon getting outside pressure. Lorenzo Carter, former Georgia Bulldog, not happening for him. They get more pressure from Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson. However, both guys are up for free agency. And they could really lose both of them this offseason. If there's a high possibility they could lose both of them this offseason. So I would definitely try to take the best defensive lineman available at 11 if it falls that way, because you're going to probably have your pick of Razul, you're going to have your pick of Michael Parsons, you're going to have a lot of those guys that's going to fall in your hand at 11. Let's see. Love Jones from Twitch is going on, buddy. She said this. They should see what they can get if they trade Barkley. Not opposed to it. That's not a bad option to try to see what you can get for him because, again, you don't want to also become predicated on a running back that's coming off of an injury either. So I agree with that 100%. But, yeah, I definitely feel that the Giants should be looking to get consistent pass rushing for next season. They actually, like I said, they were trending in the right direction. But, again, they got to address those needs. I don't think they're going to lose both of them, but I don't see both of those guys returning. Michael Thomas said if they are smart, they could trade back for a wide receiver and add an extra pick in a second. I agree. If I was the Giants, I would consider that because the Giants kind of need an overhaul on offense. I don't think Daniel Jones have really gotten the weapons to be successful out there in New York. And then, of course, if I'm not correct me if I'm wrong, I think last year was his first year without Eli Manning in the building. So you really get a chance to make a true impact anyways. My next my next need for them is corner. James Bradberry. Let me salute that brother, because I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought James Bradberry was awful in the early stages of his career, but James Bradberry came on and had a great 2020. He ended up making a Pro Bowl. You got you a solid number one corner. You have the opportunity to add a second corner in this draft, because I'm pretty sure potentially a Pat Surtain, a Caleb Farley, a Sean Wade, any of those guys could fall in your hand at 11. You got an opportunity to get you another corner that's going to shore up that secondary, because again, you got guys in that spot that can really make an impact for you. A surprise. I don't know. A lot of people may be surprised at me saying a tight end, because Evan Ingram's a Pro Bowl tight end. However, if you watch some of the Giants games, he is wildly inconsistent. There are some days he might go for 102 touchdowns. Then there are some games where he might drop 5 passes and do absolutely nothing. You can't have that. But he's really talented. That's the crazy thing about it. He's really talented. Let's see. Love Jones from Twitch said, do you think they should try to get Juju? That's not a bad option either. That's truly not a bad option either, because as you just mentioned, he's going to be a free agent. And I think I don't know their cap situation fully, but they should be in position to get a receiver. So that wouldn't be a bad pickup for the New York Giants as well. But my last pickup that goes back to what I was saying about Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson being potentially out the door, because let's see. Chris Williams said that 11 is too high for a tight end. Yeah, I'm necessarily not saying that they need a tight end at 11, but I'm naming off their needs they could go after in this draft. So that's what I decided to do with every team. So some of the needs won't be first round needs, but I'm just gonna name off what they're gonna need going forward, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of going off of what they need from the 2020 season, because of course we got free agency coming up, so certain things could get addressed in free agency. But yeah, as I was mentioning, Leonard Williams had 11 sacks last season. Dalvin Thomas is a really good defensive tackle. They're not going to be able to keep both of them. Somebody's gone. And you're going to have to find a way to replace one of those two guys. And if I was the Giants, that could be a potential move at, I don't know, at 11, but I'm trying to get a guy in the defensive, trying to get a guy on that defensive line. Oh, I'm with you, brothers. You know my opinion. Oh yeah, I definitely know. I know. I'm appreciating all the comments as well. But to move on to what the Giants are projected to get in the mock draft, I have been researching from Walter Football, ESPN, and CBS Sports. Those are the main three that's been doing mock draft projections weekly, because NFL Network's kind of, they're not really in it like they are usually. At ESPN, they're kind of over the place as well too. But as far as Walter Football has the Giants taking Jalen Waddle, ESPN has them taking Jalen Waddle. Ryan Wilson and Chris Trapasso out of CBS Sports have them taking Penn State linebacker Michael Parsons. I can see that. Josh Edwards have them taking Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Alabama. And Pete Prisco have them taking Jalen Waddle as well. So the main pundits are stating that they're going to probably see them to go after a wide receiver or even a linebacker. And I could very well see either or happen for them. Moving on to the next team, the 49ers. Man, the 49ers are in a very weird position, because truth be told, that team is so talented. Injuries are the only reason they're here. That's the only reason they're truly here, because they lost so much so early in the season. So really being at 12 is a gift for the 49ers. And truth be told, as talented as this team is, they could very well they're going to lose a couple of key free agents. I think Richard Sherman's going to be gone. I've been hearing reports that Richard Sherman is saying that it's clear that him and the 49ers are not going to be on the same page this offseason, but they're also losing other potential. They got potential free agents in. Trent Williams is a free agent. You know, they traded for him last year. Tevin Coleman is a free agent. He probably going to be gone. because Kyle Shanahan can find a running back out of anywhere. Trust me, we know very well as Falcon fans. Also, they have, I want to say, 7 corners up for free agency. That's a lot. So my needs for them are quarterback, corner, offensive lineman, tackle, and a pass rusher. Okay. My first need at quarterback. No disrespect to Jimmy Garoppolo, but that team is in win now mode. They will nothing to me. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't do enough to win Super Bowl 54 for him. That's one of my God honest opinions. Although that running game was running well, when it was time for him to make a big throw, when they need that big throw, can they really trust him? And then when you got veteran quarterbacks out here that could potentially be traded for, there have been a couple of people. I don't think it's going to happen. They've been saying that Matt Ryan was one of the guys who San Fran could go after. But, of course, Atlanta's come out and said they're not really trying to move Matt or Julio this offseason. But they're really they could be in the market for getting a quarterback to either compete or take that spot. It wouldn't be a shocker to me to see the 49ers go get a quarterback at 12. Optimus Prime time. What's going on, brother? He said Trey Lance. I could very well see Trey Lance fall in the hands of the 49ers because he'll be on the right system. Also, my next need for them is cornerback. They are losing 7 corners, including Richard Sherman and Jason Verrett. For a team that really was pretty solid in their pass defense, they still need to address that secondary. Because at the end of the day, if you can find yourself taking a Caleb Farley, a Pat Surtain, any of those guys could fall in your hands at 12, I'm taking them any day of the week with no question. So the 49ers could very well take a corner at this spot as well. Another position that they're going to be looking for is their offensive line. Hold on, give me a second. I meant to name this off. The secondary for the 49ers was still actually productive despite the injuries. They finished 4th in yards allowed. They were building the pack in touchdowns and interceptions. So they were still pretty productive despite the injuries. So you can see there's still talent there in San Fran. The 49ers offensive line, I said that the line would be their next thing that they could consider. Their line took a step back last season, and Trent Williams is 32. I'm sure he'll probably be back, but again, he's turning 32. They're going to probably re-sign Mike McGlinchey, but that middle of the offensive line is getting older. This is the best time to pursue a lineman in this draft. They could potentially pursue a Penny Sewell if he finds a way to fall that far, or Rashawn Slater if he finds a way to be there at that time, or even go in the second round and do it. But the 49ers do need to address their offensive line because that was one of their strengths that took them to the Super Bowl in 2019 in the first place. So they really need to be looking to revamp their offensive line, even if it's in the middle rounds. Also, they could very well use a pass rusher. It might be the most unpopular thing to do because last season they went and got Javon Kinlaw. Last season they got Nick Bosa, but the issue is they got that D Ford contract on their books, and D Ford's been either inconsistent or he's been hurt. And unfortunately, they cannot get the contract this offseason, or they're going to take a big cap hit because he actually has an $11.5 million injury guarantee if he's on the roster April 1st. And guess what? Sure, a lot of you probably know how the NFL works, but for the ones of you that don't understand that aspect, if you're on a roster and you are not listed as healthy, that injury guarantee is going to save him for 2021. So whether they want to move on from him or not, he's going to be on the roster in 2021. And maybe 2022 they can move on. And Arik Armstead, he was dismal last season. Got to do that well. I mean, I know you lost Bosa. There's 2 injuries. However, that defensive line was not as dominant as they were in 2019. Injuries hurt them, but the guys that were playing didn't do much either. I can read down that Armstead actually had 3.5 sacks. That's not acceptable. when you are pretty much the number one defensive end the whole season. But going on to their mock draft predictions, ESPN has them taking Pat Surtain at 12. Walter Football has them taking Caleb Farley. For CBS Sports, Ryan Wilson has them taking Devontae Smith, has them taking a receiver, actually. Christian Prosser has them taking the tackle from Northwestern, Rashawn Slater. Caleb Farley is going to be taking out of from Josh Edwards mock draft, and Pete Prisco agreed with what my buddy Optimus Primetime said just above here, that Trey Lance could fall in their hands. I could very well see them going after a quarterback in this draft too. Let's see. Virgil Hawkins going on, brother. He said there's no excuses for him. It's really not excuses, man. They were banged up last year. I know it's next man up, but they lost a lot. They had one point had Jimmy Garoppolo hurt, Kittle hurt. Like you can't make up how many injuries they had back to back to back to back. It kind of sucked for them. All right, moving along to the San Diego Chargers. Excuse me, guys. The Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers finished 7-9 last year, but guess the one beautiful thing for the Chargers? It's a new head coach, but you found your franchise quarterback. Justin Herbert was way. If y'all in the comments thought he was gonna be really good, you let me know. I did not think Justin Herbert was going to be that good that soon, but he really was productive last year. And the Chargers were 7-9, but they could have really won a couple games. Don't know if you probably remember week 4 they had the Saints beat in New Orleans. They missed a field goal. They also closed a lot of close games as well this season, and they end up getting on a little run at the end. But the Chargers got some nice pieces, and they also, they still got Joey Bosa, they still got Derwin James and Keenan Allen. They still got pieces to where all you really need to do is shore up them lines and maybe add another piece here or two in the offense, and that team is really heading in the right direction. Let's see. Kyle Jacob, what's going on, brother? Side note, you may see him pop up on some shows with me in the near future. Just keep your eyes on this guy right here. He said Herbie, Oregon's fine. He's a big time Oregon fan. Yeah, Justin Herbert had a really good season. Virgil Hawkins said I did. I didn't. I thought it would be okay. I didn't think he was going to be that good that soon. But to go on, I said that my needs for the Chargers were offensive tackle, corner, left guard, center, tight end, and wide receiver. Make no mistake about it, Justin Herbert only got sacked 26 times last season. That's not bad, but at the same time, that's not a lot. I don't want my rookie taking that many sacks. That's too many. Because although you may have took 26 sacks, how many hits did you take? Could have took more hits than sacks. Sometimes it's not recorded. But it's nothing against Bulaga. It's nothing against Sam TV and Trey Pinkins. But that offensive line they're average. Those guys are average offensive linemen. I'm not taking them for the future to protect my franchise quarterback. I got my franchise guy now. I got to get the best offensive line talent around him to make sure that he gets us back to that next level. You got the Chargers. Side note, not sure if anybody's a Chargers fan on the stream right now, but the Chargers have a gift of finding franchise quarterbacks, and that's pretty much awesome because the Chargers went from Breeze to Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert. Pretty awesome for them, I must say. Michael Thomas said that Derwin James keep getting injured. They've missed him. Other than that, they need to shore up that offensive line. I definitely agree there. Also, another reason that I said that the guards need to be looked into, they drafted Dan Feeney and Forrest Lamp in the 2017 or 18 draft. Those guys are at the end of their rookie deal. And they could very well re-sign them. They're not going to command a lot of big money. They're not the greatest offensive linemen. But at the same time, new head coach, you don't really know what he wants. They could run a whole different scheme and say, we're going to blow this whole offensive line up. That's another factor that comes into play with the Chargers. Also, the unfortunate part is with them being at 13, there's not a lot of elite offensive linemen in this draft. They're good offensive linemen, but not elite guys where you can say this guy's going to protect those trenches the second he step in there. Not to say there's not going to be sleepers in the draft that could potentially make something happen, but as far as your main guys, that's not what you want to see. So it also depends on their coaching staff and their offensive scheme, what they're going to do going forward. As far as my next concern for them, secondary wise, on paper, that secondary should have been leaked. You got Derwin James. You had Desmond King at one point in time. You had Casey Hayward and Charles Harris. Hayward and Charles Harris is 30 over the age of 30. And one thing about playing corner in the NFL, once you hit that 30 range, they're looking to replace you. Derwin James was not healthy last year, and Desmond King got traded. So that's a unit that's going to need a major revamp this offseason. And like I said, of all the positions that they need, they're in a great spot to take a corner. They're in a great position because I think it's going to be a kind of quarterback receiver heavy top 10, and they may find themselves fall into their hands. They're going to have somebody that may have been a highly projected talent fall at 13 simply because other teams have other needs. Also, they could consider taking a tight end. Not sure they would consider Kyle Pitts at 13, but they could consider taking a tight end, considering the fact Hunter Henry is a free agent. No disrespect to Hunter Henry. He has his up and downs with injuries. He's going to probably get big money on the market. That's another thing because even with him having those injuries, people have seen what he can do when healthy. So somebody's going to pay him in free agency. I will be shocked if he's a Charger next season. Let's see. Michael Thomas said they're close to double. No disrespect to Anthony Lynn, but they led the league in single-digit losses by a lot over the past 2 years, based primarily off of poor clock management. I agree, and that's why he got fired. No more, no less. They couldn't finish games. They basically was the AFC Falcons. But another need that I said that the Chargers could consider is a wide receiver. It may not be a popular thing for the Chargers, but I must say, Mike Williams, I thought Mike Williams would be a lot better than he is. He's not living up to be the guy who I initially thought he could be coming out of Clemson. And if you could get me a stud receiver at that position and I can move on from Mike Williams, I'm taking it all day long. So that's not going to be a shocker if you could see them potentially look at a receiver in this draft. If it's not in the first, maybe the second. But to move on to what the experts projected for the Chargers for CBS Sports, Ryan Wilson has them taking Kyle Pitts. Chris Trapasso has them taking Jalen Waddle. Both Josh Edwards and Pete Prisco have them taking Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Walter Football has them taking Elijah Vera Tucker, the guard out of USC. And ESPN has them taking Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. So they're all kind of, it seems like it's leaning to the three main needs that everyone sees they need. And let's see, Chris Williams said the Chargers are in a position where they can draft best available. Yes, they are. They are definitely in that position because they don't really have a lot of glaring holes on both sides of the ball. It's just those trenches that could use some help either way. And that's also depending if they don't address their free agency. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings started off pretty bad. They were 1-5 at one point in time, but they had a big second half surge. They hit in the draft, bringing in Justin Jefferson from LSU. Side note, I don't know how the Eagles passed him up, but I'll leave that for another day. Dalvin Cook was Dalvin Cook last season, but they got some big needs on that team as well. Also, shout out to Kirk Cousins. I've always been kind of critical on Kirk Cousins. He had a pretty good year in 2020. He had 35 touchdown passes. I'm going to give him his credit where it's due. But they could also address my needs for them are offensive line, defensive line, corner, and wide receiver. Oh, also I said a pass rush. Okay, so their defensive line needs a major revamp because they played last season without Danielle Hunter, who's coming off of neck surgery. They brought in Yannick Ngouake. They traded him to Baltimore because he did absolutely nothing for them. They have Michael Pierce, who's a pretty good run stopper, but they need to revamp that front four. They are still paying for losing Evers and Griffin almost 2 years ago. So they got to get some talent in on that front four. On the offensive line, they need to protect Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. They need to be able to block for them guys because they hit in the draft on Ezra Cleveland last year. But Ezra, who came in as a tackle, played better at right guard, which is a really, really weird situation. So the right side of their offensive line could be intact. They need help on their left side. So that could be a potential option for the Vikings there. Also say that they need to address getting a cornerback. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of folks may not agree with it because Cameron Dantzler and Jeff Gladney are both really good corners. They had a really good rookie year. No disrespect to those guys. They had a good year. But my personal opinion is that Jeff Gladney should be a slot corner because he's 5'10". And I'm looking to get an outside corner if I'm the Vikings because they haven't really had a solid outside corner since Xavier Rhodes a couple years ago. Jonathan Parsons, what's going on, my guy? What's going on, brother? How you doing, man? Terry Williams said, what's going on, man? How you doing? But moving forward to what I was just saying, by another surprise need, I don't know if a lot of folks may agree with this because of their situation. Don't be surprised if you see them take a receiver in this draft. Adam Thielen is a really good wide receiver, but Adam Thielen is 32, or he will be 32 this year. You got your future in Justin Jefferson. But on the flip side, as Adam Thielen get older, you're going to need your young guy of the future. You got Dalvin Cook for your future. You got Justin Jefferson for your future. Go get you a young receiver who can kind of groom himself up under Adam Thielen, and that could be the Vikings could really be replacing those veteran needs. Michael Thomas said in the perfect world, the Vikings select Christian Barmore and Landon Dickerson, center and guard from Alabama. I could very well see that play out for them in this draft, and that would be a great addition on both sides for them in this draft. But the needs for the mock draft has the Vikings taken, and this is the first time we've heard this name pop on the board, is Jalen Phillips from Miami. He's pretty good defensive end. CBS Sports Ryan Wilson had Quaddy Pay out of Michigan going to the Vikings. Trapasso had Darisaw from Virginia Tech going to the Vikings. Josh Edwards have Gregory Rizzo, another solid defensive end from Miami, going. And Pete Prisco has Azeez Ojulari from UGA going to the Vikings. That would be an interesting spot for him to land. I don't know if they would try to make him a linebacker. I can see them doing that. But ESPN also has the Vikings taking Elijah Vera Tucker, which is the guard out of USC. Moving along, last but not least, the New England Patriots. Of course, before I even go into them, we know their first need is quarterback. Cam ain't it. No disrespect to Cam. Like Cam as a player, like Cam as a person. Cam ain't it. Cam might end up being a backup the rest of his career. Sad to say it. But their needs are quarterback, receiver, guard, and the pass rusher. So, of course, the Patriots lost Tom Brady last offseason. They had a lot of guys opt out, and they still managed to finish 7-9, which is crazy to think about that this is the first time that the Patriots missed the playoffs since 2008, and they were 11-5 that year. This was their first losing season since 2000. As much as I couldn't stand that dominance, you had to respect it. That's 20 years of not losing. That's respect. That's a lot of dominance. So this is their first year having a setback, and even the 7-9 record was still not that bad of a setback. But at quarterback, it is very, very clear Cam is not the same Cam that he was maybe even 2-3 years ago. Injuries hurt him. That's another thing. So do not be surprised if the Patriots are in the market for trading for a veteran or even just being a destination to land a quarterback, if not get one in the draft. They should, if they stay put, you're in a pretty good position. In a pretty good position. Let me answer these comments. Michael Thomas said Mac Jones. That would absolutely be a good fit for the Patriots at 15. That would definitely be a good fit for them. Love Joe said, yeah, because the Patriots are cheaters. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, it's crazy. They want that just to kind of make some people feel old. I was in 5th grade when they won their first Super Bowl. I am 30 now. So they just started losing at the age of 29 and 30. Like, that's crazy. They went on a almost 20-year run. But back to what I was talking about, this is a great spot for them to get a quarterback. As far as a wide receiver, that's another thing that also could have hurt Cam Newton. There's nobody on the Patriots receiving corps. I'm just like, they're just outstanding. Not even Julian Edelman at this point. That receiving corps needed a major revamp. Needed one when Tom was still there. But Tom was able to still manage to win a lot of football games despite not having a really good receiving corps. This will be the year with this loaded receiving class to consider taking a wide receiver at some point in this draft. So that's another guy. They don't have a true number one. They got a pretty good piece. They got Demir Bird had a pretty good year. You got guys like Dickerson had a pretty good year, but you don't have a legit number one receiver. You need a number one receiver in this league. There's a lot of teams don't have a number one receiver in this league. Also, another move could be guard. Joe Thuney is one of the best offensive linemen in the league. However, he's probably going to be gone. Joe Thuney is probably going to be a free agent, going to probably get a big contract. And I don't blame him. He's deserved it. He earned it. So Joe Thuney is probably not going to be in New England much longer. So do not be surprised if they manage to take an offensive lineman in this draft as well. This is a pretty good guard draft. They don't have to go in the first round and they don't have to jump or reach for a first round guard. You can actually take one sometime throughout this draft. They're going to also get picks for Tom Brady and Kyle Van Noy, who, side note, the Dolphins just cut him. I'm not sure why they cut him. I may touch on that at some point later on when I get to the playoff teams or even on Thursday. Also, New England could use a pass rusher. New England finished 26 in sacks overall, but they didn't have Dante Hightower and a lot of guys on defense. However, you got to get pressure on that front four. Most New England teams predicate themselves on getting at the quarterback. They couldn't do it last year. And with this year, with this draft being the way it is, there's going to be a lot of defensive ends going to fall into their hands. So they could very well go get the best pass rusher available at 15 and be perfectly content with it. Now, the mock draft have CBS Sports Ryan Wilson has him taking Gregory Rizzo out of Miami. Christopher Pross has him taking, here's the new name, Jeremiah Owusu-Koroma out of Notre Dame. Josh Edwards have him taking Mac Jones out of Alabama at quarterback. Pete Prisco has him taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. Walter Football has him taking Gregory Rizzo out of Miami. And ESPN has him taking Mac Jones out of Florida as well. So that covered teams 11 through 15. On Thursday, I'm going to talk about teams 16, 17, and 18 in the draft. Because what I want to do is I want to show all the teams I want to give as we get past the non-playoff teams, next week show, I want to go into giving the wild card teams their day, the divisional teams their day, work my way on up. But also, it also depending on the other topics that comes up as we go. I'm also going to probably have a surprise guest for the playoffs. If you are a fan of any of those postseason teams and you want to get on here and talk with me about what your team need in that first round, be available to hit me up. We'll set something up, and I would love to hear what you have to say about your team because honestly, I'm having fun get a chance to go team by team and see what everyone needs. It gives everyone that don't follow the draft process heavy, or even those other teams outside of their favorite team, an opportunity to see what everyone is talking about. But as I mentioned above, if you wasn't on the podcast when I first started, I will be doing a mock draft contest closer to the draft. So be on the lookout for that. For the top 10 to 15 picks in the NFL draft, whoever comes, the top 3 most accurate mock drafts will earn a prize. That is for the first round. That's the night of the first round. I'll be live that night. I'm not sure where I'll be. I may be here, I may be at sports bar doing this draft. I'm not sure. But either way, I will put the information in all the links so you can be able to start learning how to do the mock draft, getting the process going. But for now, that is all in with Nate. On Thursday, I will be back on talking 16, 17, and 18. If it's any topics that you want to hear me talk about, please let me know. I'm glad to cover any topic that you want to hear. But until then, you all have a good day, and I appreciate all the support, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.